Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Outside the Studio. This week I am coming to you from my office. I have a very special session planned, yoga for desk workers. And you don't need to be in your yoga clothes. You don't need a yoga mat. You really don't need anything yoga related per se. I would love you to have your office chair and or some wall space. We will do a little bit of movement, but it's not anything that you can't do in the clothes that you're currently wearing. So I'm wearing jeans and a shirt, and I'm going to do everything that I'm going to teach you in all of this stuff. Real quick before we get started, grab something that you can use like a strap. I just have one of these exercise bands. You can get creative at home with something like a belt or a dog leash or a towel or even a blanket. Just something that you're going to be able to pull a little bit wider than shoulder width distance apart. My cat wants to say hello. This is a Beha. She's my little assistant today. So go grab that item that you're going to use like a strap and come back and we will get started. All right, so here we are. Just a few quick little pieces of information before we move our bodies a little bit. I love this graphic, and this probably isn't new to anyone to see like our evolution from the four-legged creature to walking around on 2 feet to moving back towards that almost four-legged creature because our head's starting to move forward and down. Whether or not you are seated at a desk all day or whether or not you have a standing desk, we carry this little phone computer with us everywhere we go, which encourages that forward tilt of the head. Even if it's just that 30 degrees forward, this is like asking your cervical spine to carry an extra 40 pounds on your neck. So just take that into consideration as you go about your day and you think about what kind of postures you place yourself in on a daily basis. If we are accustomed to sitting at a desk for something like 8 hours a day, this puts the body, the posterior body, into a lengthened but also a weak position. So it's lengthening because usually we're rounding the shoulders forward, the chin is down. That's kind of not stretching the back body, it's putting it into a lengthened position, but it's not, these muscles are tight and the back muscles are feeling achy, not because they're strong, usually it's because they're weak, especially if we're used to sitting all day. And then the anterior body, the front body, is also in a flexed position. The hips are flexed, knees are flexed, shoulders are often rounded forward, and that can get all tight and achy too. But again, oftentimes the achiness and the tightness is not coming from strength. It's often in combination with weakness. So something to be aware of when you're thinking about how you're going to approach physical therapy, rehabilitation, active movement throughout the day, and or a yoga practice that you may not have right now or that you're thinking about starting to cultivate. So first thing that I would suggest you do is just become aware of your posture. You can use a mirror, so you can like turn to the side, check out what's going on with the shoulders first. They might be a little bit more forward than you actually think they are. And notice the position of the head. Even if you're turning your head to the side to look in the mirror, just notice if the head position, like the ears in particular, are forward of the shoulders. And then look at our little model here off to the right-hand side. She's got this great stacked posture of ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over ankles, which is the ideal, nice stacked, strong position to stand in. So one way to check that, to see what's going on, where you might be weak, where you might be needing to add a little bit of strength, add a little bit of range of motion, is this second bullet point, standing with your heels, buttocks, shoulders against a wall, and bringing your head into position. And I'll show you what I mean by that. in a moment. I'm going to bring you back to me. And I'm going to walk over to my wall. And so you could do, I would suggest taking off your shoes if it's possible to take off your shoes. You can just set your shoes and socks off to the side so you can actually feel your feet on the ground. And then walk your heels up to the wall, let your butt rest on the wall. Feel your shoulders against the wall and see if you can relax the head back. That's going to put you in an anatomically neutral, correct position. And notice if that's easy or hard for you to kind of just hold here for the next few seconds while I talk. What happens to the neck? What happens to the chin? What happens to the low back? What happens to that sensation in the front body? Do you feel like you're going to pitch forward? Just kind of notice here for a few moments. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. If this is relatively easy for you, that's a really good sign. Good job. Stick with whatever you're doing. Okay, so second, I'd like to have just a brief little movement practice. These are things that I would suggest. Maybe you set a timer every 20 minutes if possible, every 30 minutes if possible, maybe even every hour to just check in with the body, add a little bit of movement, add a little bit of range of motion. So first thing are, you could think of it like flossing the neck. So whether you're seated in your chair or standing upright, just begin to roll the neck out, kind of like you can imagine you're drawing circles with your nose or your chin. And you might notice sounds the neck makes, like snap, crackle, pop. And this will go away with time, with practice, those sounds. But it's important to kind of note them first off. And then go the opposite direction with those circles. Notice the breath. Good. Second thing I'd like you to do is grab that strap that I had you go get. Again, you can do this standing or seated. I'm going to take a seat on my exercise ball. You can be sitting in your office chair if it's comfortable for you. But I'd like to sit just so that you can, I have a short ceiling, so I'm going to get my arms all the way up to the ceiling, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. So take that strap, whatever you're using for your strap, pull it up and overhead, let your fists be wider than your shoulders, so you're making a nice wide V. And this will be your inhale breath right here. With your exhale breath, start to let that strap kind of come behind the head, but see if you can keep the arms relatively straight. So any amount, arms behind the head. And then exhale, let that strap come in front of the body, let your arms rest. We'll just try that a few times to get a sense of range of motion through the shoulders. Inhale, strap up and overhead. Exhale, strap starts to come behind you. I love these exercise bands because they're stretchy, so I can pull my arms wide. And I find more range of motion in that way with my fists as wide as they can go. Let's try it 3 more times, and you might notice as you do this with the breath that the range of motion starts to actually change. Maybe the strap starts to come behind the body a little bit more. Maybe the shoulders start to feel a little bit more open. Twice more, inhaling up, exhaling back, back to the front, and one last time. Stay with your breath. Good. So that strap off to the side. Next little exercise. This is something I like to incorporate into my yoga classes. And it's really simple and it's so good for strengthening the wrist and the fingers. So if you experience carpal tunnel, if you experience kind of numbness, if fingers feel weak, this is a really great exercise to do. Super simple, just stretch your arms up and overhead, close your hands into fist, and then flick your fingers open. Close your hands into fist, flick open, and then add some momentum. So make it faster. Flick, 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 flick your fingers, arms reaching overhead. It doesn't take long for this to start to burn throughout the forearms and the fingers. So stay with it. Let's take about 3 breaths here. Last 2. Last 1. And then let the arms go. Good. One last little thing with the strap. This time, 90-degree bend with the elbows. So elbows in close to the side body. And then fist about shoulder width apart. And all you're going to do is start to stretch that strap or slide the hands wide on the strap. So building strength through the anterior shoulder muscles, which tend to be, again, weak and tight. So you're building strength as you're stretching. Eccentric. This is an eccentric range of motion practice. So you're stretching something under pressure while you're using the muscle. And try 3 more of those. It really doesn't take much. So keep the elbows in close, fists start to come wide, shoulders start to rotate open. Twice more. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So strap is a great thing to keep by your desk. You could pick this up if you're on a call and you're not actively presenting or actively talking. You could do this while you're listening, actively listening and paying attention to your call and adding a little bit of strength and range of motion into upper body. Next thing I'd like to have you do is stand up. And if you have some wall space, you can try this with me. If you don't have wall space, just watch and try it when you can get to a wall. I'm just going to use my door. Doors are great wall spaces because there's nothing ever blocking them, right? So I'm going to turn to face the wall and my hands will be at my hips. I'm going to plant my hands into the wall. And I'm going to start to step my feet back, lengthening out through my arms until my feet are right underneath my hips. So this is kind of like if you've ever taken a vinyasa class, this is kind of like a downward facing dog at the wall without any weight on the hands or minimal weight on the hands. So feet are parallel. You're really pressing the feet down into the ground. Your quadriceps are engaged and your hands are actively pressing the wall away from you. Hug the navel up into the spine. See if you can tuck the tailbone down towards the backs of the knees. Find a little bit of length in the waist and the side of the ribs. And let the ears come between the biceps. So you can pause here and breathe for 3. 4, 2. 4, 1. So nice and slow, come back to the wall. And if you get dizzy when you're walking yourself out of this, just tuck your chin to your chest and you can stand tall, chin tucked into the chest for a few moments. That dizzy sensation will pass. Once you feel better, walk the feet out wide if you have space, just depending on your office space. Feet might be a little bit wider than the hips. And this is one of my favorite things to do is just sway the body side to side. Even if you don't have, time to do any of these other exercises, standing up every once in a while, taking 5 seconds to just take your feet wide, sway your body side to side like this, let the arms be heavy. So good for the nervous system. So good for the spine. Also gets your blood flowing, which is a really good thing. Okay. So let that go. Last little bit of standing stuff here, and then I'll talk to you about what I would suggest you do after work at the end of your workday. So, 2 options here. One, you can take that strap again, and you can take the strap behind the back, so that you're gripping the strap with the wrist close together, and the palms are facing away from the butt. Or, if you have that range of motion, you can interlace your fingers to the webbing. You can bend at the wrist, that's totally fine. but just don't force that through the front of the chest. But if you did that exercise with me, that shoulder flossing, you might find you have a little bit more range of motion than normal today. I'm going to use the strap because I think it just feels good. Again, let's take that wide stance with the feet. Turn the right toes to the right, and slightly turn the left toes to the front of the, wherever the right toes are facing. So the hands are behind the back. You're either gripping your strap or interlacing the fingers. The torso, the hips are starting to face towards the right toes. And then start to reach the chest forward. So this is an active thing. It's not an easy thing to do. You're just reaching the torso forward like you're moving the torso towards parallel with the ground, and pause when you get there. Reach the knuckles back to the space behind you. Keep the neck nice and neutral. Gaze is down at the floor. Keep pressing in through both feet. Breathe for 3, 2, 1. Lift your torso back upright. Bring your feet to parallel. Keeping the hands behind the back as they are, interlaced or using the strap. Turn the left toes to the left and let the right toes follow. Start to square your hips towards that left toes, shoulders follow. Stretch through the knuckles. Same thing. Come down just halfway until the torso starts to feel close to parallel. It can be a little bit higher. That's totally fine. Keep reaching through the knuckles. Keep pressing through both of your feet. Keep the neck relaxed. And check in with your breath for 3, 2, 1. Reach through those knuckles to pull the torso back up. Feet become parallel. Set that strap off to the side. And sway your body side to side, just like you did before. Feels so nice. All right, so let's move on to things that I would suggest that you do after a work day. These are things that you could do during a work day, but it might be nice to have a little bit more time to spare to soothe the nervous system, to just transition from your work day to relaxing into the evening. Number 1, I highly recommend going for a walk. Getting yourself outside, and that might not sound like it's related to yoga, but what I would suggest as you're going for a walk is think about your posture. So as you're going for a walk, you could think back to that exercise we did with the heels, the butt, and the shoulders and the back of the head against the wall. Notice as you're walking, if you can feel that neutral position, ears, shoulders, hips, all in alignment. And obviously you're moving your feet, so that's going to change a little bit, but without having it be too mechanical, notice through your walk if the shoulders start to curve down and forward, if the chin starts to come down. And certainly if you're walking with your phone and looking at your phone, you're going to notice that stretch and strain at the back of the neck. So try this without a phone, if possible. 5 minutes, 10 minutes if you can do it. Second thing, active range of motion and passive range of motion. So I'll give you an example of active range of motion. We just did it with our hands behind the back, leaning the chest forward. So you're actively using the muscles of your torso and your back to hold yourself in that position. Really great for strengthening the back body and the legs and opening up through the shoulders. Passive range of motion would be something like laying down on your back. Maybe you have your strap. And I'll see if I can do this and still be in the frame. Yeah, this will work. So bending both of the knees, feet planted. You might loop up the ball mound of that right foot, extend the right foot towards the ceiling. Passive range of motion. So you're using the strap in your hands to passively stretch the back of the right leg. So both of these things are equally important in balance. I think a lot of times we think about yoga as passively stretching or, thinking about, okay, my low back hurts, so what's the natural inclination? I want to come into a forward fold, passively stretch my back. Well, if the back muscles are already weak and tight, probably you want to build some strength in the back muscles instead of adding all the extra weight of the upper body onto a weak muscle already and folding forward. Can cause a little bit of extra stress and possibly even chronic pain. So something that you'd want to check with a physical therapist if you're experiencing chronic pain in the back. Anywhere in the body, really, you want to check with a physical therapist. But I highly recommend using your yoga practice or thinking about your yoga practice as a balance between building muscle strength at your end range of motion and where and when is it appropriate to actively or passively rather stretch. So things like a yin practice or restorative practice or more passive stretching. I always advocate for a balance of both. At the end of the day, cat and cow, and you can do cat and cow seated. So coming back to your chair, feel free to do this with me. Hands can just rest on the knees. You can roll the chin into the chest, press the back into the space behind you. And then pull the heart forward, squeeze the elbows in, roll the shoulders down and back, move them towards the spine. Doing that a few times. Cat and cow. Great thing to do. This can be done, like I said, any time of day. But I highly recommend doing it at the end of the day. Maybe you're seated in your chair waiting for dinner and you're doing this. Or you're watching your favorite TV show at night. It's a commercial break. Do those even exist anymore? Commercials? But yeah. So cat and cow, seated. You can also do that in tabletop. You can get down on your hands and knees, maybe before bed, and move through some cat and cow. And then finally, my all-time favorite is legs at the wall or legs over a chair. Any kind of really gentle inversion is so soothing, helps to decompress everything that if you've been sitting all day on the tailbone, everything stacking and weighted down into the tailbone, reversing all of that, moving the blood flow from the feet up to the vital organs of the body versus the blood flowing this direction. So it gives you a new perspective and it helps circulation, blood pressure, and it helps really soothe and calm the nervous system to help you get ready for sleep. So if you've never done legs up the wall, I'll give you a quick demonstration. Again, a door is a great place to use if wall space is hard to come by in your house. So just make sure if it's not a closet door, tell your partner or your children, hey, I'm going to close this door and my legs are going to be up it. So when they go to open it, they don't, kick you out of your post. All right, so getting into legs at the wall. It does take a little bit of practice, but this is what I find is easiest. Getting yourself into a crouching position, my hips and my shoulders are in contact with the wall. And then I start to roll onto my right shoulder, I roll onto my right hip. Continue with that. Hips start to come into contact with the wall, my legs kick up, and then I relax my heels against the wall. And then I check out, once I'm here, I check out shoulders and neck. I kind of tuck my chin into my chest. I relax my shoulders away from my ears, and I find a comfortable position to rest my arms. That might be wide out to the side. It might be bending the elbows. Really stay here as long as you like. If you could stay here for 10 minutes, great. If you have 5 minutes, amazing. If you have 2 minutes, fantastic. Any amount of time, the longer the better. That's legs up the wall. I highly recommend incorporating at least that one thing into your daily ritual or your nightly ritual, or whenever you can fit it into your day. All right, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you are able to take some of these little practices with you, and I hope they help you feel more productive, more happy, and feel better in your physical body. Enjoy.